Well, as I said in the last interview, there are significant differences between men and women. And the really interesting thing is that even though women are much more likely to get depressed than men because they ruminate, they worry, they stay with their problems and feel that talking about their problems is the answer. For men who like to problem solve, who like to sort things out, who like to hold things in, are less likely to get depressed, but for them, a depression is much more serious. And so men are much more likely than women to commit suicide, which is very interesting. Three to one is the ratio of women to men for depression, but men commit suicide in the United Kingdom 3.5 times more than women. Women may attempt to commit suicide, but they don't succeed for reasons that we can speculate on. But for a man, if there is a problem and they are depressed and they don't know what to do about it and they're absolutely out of control, well, committing suicide is a solution. And men will be more likely to do that. They focus on solutions. And I think, explains why men are much more likely to go into addictive behaviors compared to women. Because addiction is a form of self-medication, you can say, and addiction is a way of dealing with problems that otherwise seem insoluble. So certainly men have mental and emotional problems, at least on the same scale as women do, but they sort it out and they solve it differently. What else can we say about men's brains compared to women? Well, men are much more addicted to stimulus. Men are much more risk takers than women. Women are much more cautious than men. Men are much more happy with status. That's an interesting and subtle thing. In fact, if you get a group of men together, they'll do a lot of talking, especially at the beginning, and arguably what they're doing is establishing their status. So they're indicating who knows more, is more powerful than the other. And once status is established, men are quite happy with that. Women don't like the idea of status. This is why I think, if I can have a parenthesis, that there are a lot of women who come to me who prefer men as their bosses, or who prefer to work with men in business situations, because men are much more clear-cut. The status is established and that's it. And women can be quite catty in business situations because they're much more concerned about status, how somebody looks, how somebody dresses, how somebody presents themselves. Men don't really worry about that. Another thing about differences in psychological response, men are much more likely to get angry than women. Anger is and this is for interesting reasons. Anger is actually often a solution to a problem. If you're not being heard, if you're not being understood, if you lose your temper and you lose it, people will listen to you. And in fact, anger can itself be a form of addictive behavior. It's not the best, of course it's not, and in times anger will lose you family, it will lose you friends, may even lose you business. So anger has to be dealt with, and quite often anger problems and addictive problems for men feed into depression because they are addicted and they worry about it and they don't know what to do about it. They lose their temper with their family, with their spouse, and hate themselves for doing it, but they can't stop. And so they worry about it. And I don't find this with the women depressed clients I see. For them, anger is much less frequent, and so it's more like that.